Brahma. That is, we commonly understand it as the Om, which is the three stages of consciousness, which is the Vishwadhar, which is the active phase, Tejas, which is the dream stage, which is the U, A, U, and the Ma, which is the Ardha Matra, which is the silent period, the pause, which is the Turiya, or so Pradnyan, you can say, the super consciousness. So these are the four stages. The fourth is disallowed by some, but at least the three stages of consciousness, and the fourth is the super consciousness. And a lot of artists, including Gaitore, have explored that realm, which you so beautifully spoke about, the dust on your soul, or the fire of your soul. Now, would you please embark on that journey of discovery for us again, for the benefit of the younger people and for those who are interested in Indian culture, and how it has influenced the West in discovering a very holistic way of living, which is non-material, which is a more spiritualist tradition, and how your Nad Brahm, which is your which you express through your fingers on the tabla and on the canvas through the colors. Because if I may, a tone, a tonality, there are tonalities in color also, tints and tones. There are textures, and there are colors that you spoke about, how you arrived at white, which is the eighth color, you might say. So how there is a music of the spheres also. The 7 planets, they approximately orbit around the sun under the gravity of force of the gravity, and they are 7 notes on the scale. It is called a harmonic scale. And so from Pluto to Mercury, from Mercury to Pluto. So Mercury would be something like D, and your Pluto will be like a low Sa, and it's more like a rhythm, because so when you take a rhythm, any rhythm, and if you oscillate it, because every sound is a frequency, so if you oscillate a rhythm to a highest level, it becomes a swar. So even a sound, a rhythm, when you do that fast, it becomes a melody, it becomes a tone. So there is this intricate connection between swar and also rhythm. And similarly, there is a similar sort of interaction between the 3 colors that can produce all colors of the universe, the combination of it. So similarly, our tabla, there are certain basic notes like na, dha, and it is a spoken rhythm, so we speak the rhythm and we play it. So these concepts, which people may not understand, in brief, how did you have that holistic vision, and how did you express that in your painting?
See, though you mentioned Om, Indian sages have discovered Om from the rotation of the sun. In the Vedakala, Vedic period, the rotation of the sun creates that sound, Om, continuously going on. And from that, the Om is taken. Om is the first sound that comes when the child cries. And all these things they have studied. Plus, we have the mystery of 7 bodies, 7 minds, and 7 layers of consciousness, 7 dreams, and so on. In 7 bodies, when you realize your 4th body, you begin to produce the dreams. That level where the artist comes in, from naturalistic to that the 4th track. He begins to produce dream and bring those dreams on canvas, or in singing, or in poetry, or in dance. That is the creative stage. 50s was a period when they may not be aware of 7 bodies or 7 minds, but 50s, the century coming to that level where they were painters, dancers, creators, creative minds were already sensing that change happening. And when you sense it from within, it begins to reflect. For instance, a kettle is sitting on the stove, and when it's boiling, it's a different feeling than the kettle just sitting cold. Now, earlier work came to that point where it was boiling and you could feel that heat. You could listen to those bubbles and respond to that. You cannot but respond. You have to, because now you are aware of those changes happening and feeling within them, and artists of that time were responding to that. And some other countries, their reproductions of works are already available. Our artists went abroad to learn, and they expressed, they saw those changes happening, and those changes happen in them. They were not changing for the sake of changing. So here, you have two groups here, two artists, like you mentioned Picasso. Picasso took inspiration from African masks and all cave paintings and all those things. He was at that time where he sensed the change, sensed the change happening into the century. And naturally he was responding to those changes, and that was reflecting in his work. Similarly, our artists here in India, progressive group especially, they felt those changes happening earlier than anyone else. But they could not practice and bring it into the market because they will have to lose their identity. Achrekar, a realistic painter, he wouldn't like to use his name and fame and everything, and create some abstract piece. They know they won't accept, because they know Art-critic has his identity. Realistic painters had their own identity. But there were some daredevils, like Souza, Hussein, and many others. They didn't care what they were before and what they felt it. They were sincere to themselves, honest and daredevils. So they created that. Hussein painted his car and put in Jahangir Art Gallery. His horses were galloping. Then he did a lot of things, barefoot, candle, lantern in his hand, and a loaf of bread, walking barefoot on the street. He was feeling the change. And then they may feel good. For many, he was an eccentric madman, But the changes were happening, and younger generation was responding to that. Although they ridiculed him or made fun of him, but one thing they realized, that changes were happening, and feeling within, not that they could interpret it, but those who had that media of expressing, they express it through that. And that group of painters, what they created in those days will be valid forever. Because they found that they got that magic and they captured into their work. They expressed themselves, and into that expression you see that.
You know, the point I would elaborate on this, and I think your comments will be very insightful as they have been, is that we have seen art in a continuum from the perspective, say, of the 30s when you had Impressionism. You know, for the first time, you had in the West, in Western art, a total breakaway movement that broke away from the realism of the Renaissance period. And the Impressionism, which had different aspects of it. It was pointillism of with the dots of Shura, for example. Monet had his flicks. You know, Cézanne painted in a more solid form. He wanted to preserve the solidity of nature, the permanence of nature. He didn't see nature in quite the same way as Monet did. For him, nature was ephemeral. It was something that he was more interested in catching the effect of light on water or on haystacks, his famous haystacks painting, etc. So Impressionism was, as the name suggests, an impression of nature, a kshan, a moment, a magical moment when you see something which only exists for that moment. You know, that which you mentioned as bliss, the experience of moksha or bliss, which is in that instant you experience eternity. In that one instant you see the whole eternity. So that movement from Impressionism to Expressionism to Dadaism, Surrealism, etc., and Cubism, and we have gone through so lot of isms, and now we are now in the 21st century, and I think after post-Gaitonde, the discovery of Gaitonde, as we say, discovery of America, so discovery of Gaitonde in America, we are now at the crossroads in art and art history, where we have to ask the question, what can India and Indian Advait philosophy, Vedant philosophy, which is going back to 1860s, Vivekananda, Max Muller, and Kumaraswamy, etc. Those are old milestones now, the last century. And after that, we've had Krishnamurti, Raman Maharshi, this and that, so many Indian sages and Rajneesh completing that whole cycle. And today there are others also taking their place. So Indian philosophy and Vedant philosophy is now accepted in the West, as Buddhism is, as probably the progenitor of it. From Buddha came from that same source of, he was an Advait philosopher in his own way, Upanishadic scholar in his own way, and he completes that process, combination of that process. So in many respects, the question now, today, which I'm asking you and we would like you to comment on, is where are we in terms of that continuum? And do you think that your work and the work of contemporary senior artists like, say, Lakshmanji, Lakshman Shrestha, and Akbar Padamsee, and those that are still with us, can lead us to that quest for that kshan, that magic moment, where you capture it on canvas and express that joy, that sublime feeling of eternity? And how can Indian philosophy, Vedanta, and music and other art forms, our religion, help us in that regard?
When we ask certain questions to Bhagwan Rajneesh, he said, I'm not here to answer your questions, but I will see that your question becomes so big that you will get drowned into it and go to the bottom of your heart. Yeah, not your heart, but your inner mind. You'll go to the bottom of your inner mind and find your own answers. And when you find your own answers, you are talking from your own experience. You are not using or living on others' experience. Now, when discussions like that or question and answers like this go to certain points, certain stage, where verbalizing is not needed. Rather, the verbalizing leads to confusion. So answering your question step by step, it would be leading, mind is such, that always produces questions. In everywhere, everything, mind, that's the game, there's a name of the game for the mind, to produce questions. But in the same mind, inner mind, the depth of that mind, the answers are already stored. So, I would say, ask the question for which pre-recorded answer is not there in your mind. And that kind of question is very easy to answer. Now, I remember one meeting of Krishnamurti and some businessman in New York. He's sitting and question answer was going on. It came to the point where Krishnamurti says, now I don't know where I am, because it became so complicated that his answers will not mean like answers, but they will produce more questions. Now in bringing that, relating that to abstract paintings or new creation, modern art, Picasso himself wasn't creating cubism. He never meant it that way. That wasn't his blue period that he was going to create. He didn't mean it. It happened that he was in particular state of mind and used more blue color, blue painting, and this is the critic called that blue period. Critics call them cubists. Critics call them Dadaism, this, them and some. And when the sun comes in, the soul goes out. As long as you are rebel, you are alive. Francis Newton Sousa was a rebel. He left his training in the middle.